last week's lesson, I began Surah Al-Baqarah, and I mentioned some virtues regarding this particular surah, and we also looked at some characteristics and some qualities of this particular surah. And I mentioned that Surah Al-Baqarah is one of those surahs where all the injunctions, or you could say the majority of all the injunctions in Islam is found in this particular surah. That in this particular surah you will find rules, injunctions pertaining to purification. You will find rules and injunctions regarding salah. That you will find rules and injunctions regarding zakat, regarding fasting, regarding hajj, regarding jihad, regarding qisas, even retaliation. It's one of those comprehensive surahs where many injunctions is found. Things such as marriage, talaq, divorce, breastfeeding is all found in this particular surah. And because of its comprehensive nature, it took the great Sahabi, the great companion, Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, 12 years to understand and to thoroughly understand this particular surah. And then after that, we went on to look at the very first verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, which is Alif Lam Mim. And I mentioned last week that these verses are known as Huruf Muqatta'at, and there are differences of opinions amongst the scholars that what do these Huruf Muqatta'at mean. Some scholars have said that it's a divine symbol, or it's a divine meaning, or it's like one of those mysteries which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some commentators have said that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam know the true reality and the true essence of these words. And some have said that these words are Alif Lam Mim and Ha Mim and so on. These are the divine names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now inshallah, in today's lesson we will make a start on the second verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. And then first of all what we'll do is that we'll just have a brief overview of the next paragraph or so, and then after that any injunctions and any rulings and any maslas which have been deduced, we will look at that in more depth. Now the second verse of Surah Al-Baqarah is ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That book, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ means that book, لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, that there is no doubt in it. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and it is a source of guidance for the God-fearing people. Now let's have a look at this particular verse. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Now ذَلِكَ in Arabic or in Arabic grammar, ذَلِكَ is used to indicate or to point towards something or to gesture towards something. And in the Arabic language, there are two types of indication. There are two types of gestures. There are two types of pointing. One is called ishara-i-qarib. A thing which is in front of you, an item or an object is in front of you, then you will use words such as haza, hazani, and haulai to describe to the listener, to describe to the reader that this thing is in front of you. So just say, for example, if a person is in front of me or a book is in front of me, so I will say haza kitab, that this is a book. I will say haza al-kitab, or this book. Or I will say haza rajulun, this is a man. Or I will say haza rajul, this man, and so on. And the second type of indication, or the second type of gesturing in the Arabic language is known as ishara-i-ba'id. And ishara-i-ba'id are words such as zalika, tilka, zanika, and so on. So just say, for example, if a building or a house is on Lloyd Street or somewhere else, or like, for example, if a book is in the hall adjacent to us or is in a classroom, so I will say zalika kitabun, like that book, or I will say zalika al-kitab, and so on. Now the objection from this particular verse is that this book, i.e. al-kitab, i.e. the Holy Quran, it is in front of us. So grammatically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should have used the word haza. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should have said haza al-kitabu la rayba fi, because this book is in front of us. So the question arises that why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the word zalika? Now many answers have been given with regards to this particular objection. But the main answer, or the best answer, is that here zalika, it's an indication, but it's not indicating towards this book. But here the zalika is indicating towards a dua, towards a supplication which we made in the previous surah. Now, what was the dua and supplication which we made in the previous surah? If we look at verse 6, where we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, that Allah guide us on the straight path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is replying to that supplication, is replying to that request, that we ask Allah to guide us onto the straight path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that that supplication, the answer to that supplication is al-kitab. Meaning that in the book, if you study the book, or if you study the Holy Quran, if you obey the commands of the Holy Quran, if you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do not disobey the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then by following the book, then that will take you to the straight path. So here the word zalika, the indication isn't to the book itself which is in front of us, but it is to a supplication, it is to a dua which has come before. So ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ, that book, لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, there is no doubt in it, هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and it is a source of guidance for the God-fearing people. Now, who are the muttaqin? What is meant by muttaqin? Now, the word muttaqin is derived from the root word taqwa, and taqwa literally means to fear or to refrain from. And technically, or Islamically, when we use the word taqwa, we mean to refrain from disobeying the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That basically to obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to refrain from disobeying the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is called taqwa. And those who have this taqwa in their heart, then they are called the muttaqin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this Quran, where there is no doubt in it, it is a source of guidance for the God-fearing people. Now in verse number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to mention some qualities of these God-fearing people. That this book is a source of guidance for the God-fearing people. Now what are the qualities of the God-fearing people? Number 1, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. That these God-fearing people, they believe in the unseen. Things which we haven't seen, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us regarding it, then that is known as iman bil ghayb, that is known as believing in the unseen. Now we haven't seen angels with our own eyes, but every one of us sitting here believes in the existence of angels. And how or why do we believe in the existence of angels? Is because it is mentioned in numerous verses in the Holy Quran regarding the existence of angels. Talks about the angel of death, talks about Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam, Hazrat Mikail alayhi salam, talks about Hazrat Israfil alayhi salam, who will blow the trumpet for the day of judgment. So we haven't seen these angels, but our belief is that we believe in these angels. Similarly, we haven't seen Jannah, we haven't seen paradise with our own eyes. We haven't seen the fire of hell with our own eyes. But again, we believe in paradise, we believe in Jannah, we believe in fire of hell. That if a person obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he believes in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he believes in the finality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he does good in this world, that person will enter Jannah, will enter paradise. Even though we haven't seen Jannah, but this is our belief. And we also believe that if you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't follow His command, then that person will go to Jahannam, will go to the fire of hell. So again, we haven't seen the fire of hell, but we believe in fire of hell, we believe in Jahannam. So that is known as iman bil ghayb, i.e. to believe in the information which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given to us, even though those things are invisible to our eyes, meaning that we haven't seen it with our own eyes, it is not in front of us, but that is the whole concept of iman. I'm going to look at this more later in detail when we look at iman and Islam. But iman literally means to tasdeeq, i.e. to verify, to believe in the information given by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, given by the Prophet through Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without having any doubts whether the Prophet is telling the truth or not. That is known as iman bil ghayb, that is known as believe in the unseen. So the first quality of these God-fearing people is الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, and that is that they believe in the unseen. The second quality of these God-fearing people is وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ, and that is that they establish salah, they establish namaz. Now, obviously again when we look at it in more detail later, we'll look at the fiqh aspects of salah. But just very briefly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse number 3, He used the word yuqimuna, and He didn't use the word wayu'adduna. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say that these God-fearing people, they just read their 5 namazis. He didn't say that. If He was, He would have probably used the word yuwaddun. But instead Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word yuqimun. Now yuqimun comes from the root word iqama, which means straightened. Iqama means straightened. And from this particular verse, there is a subtle indication that these God-fearing people, not only they read their 5 daily prayers, not only they read their 5 namazis, but they read their 5 namazis in such a way, with full devotion, with full concentration, with khushu, with khudu, no thinking about any worldly stuff whilst they're reading the namaz, not thinking about their businesses, not thinking about their shops, not thinking about their studies or anything like that. Whilst they're in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, full concentration, full devotion. Whilst they're standing up, full concentration in the standing position. Whilst they're doing ruku, whilst they're bowing down, they're bowing, the ruku is straight, their backs are straight, they are reading the salah as it has been prescribed, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prescribed in numerous ahadith. These are the second quality, or this is the second quality of the God-fearing people, is that they read the salah in full devotion, in full concentration. Similar to the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, which is famously known as Hadith Jibreel, when Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam came in the form of Hazrat Dihya Kalbi radhiyallahu anhu, and asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam various questions regarding Qiyamah, regarding Iman and so on. So one of the questions which was asked by Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِحْسَانِ, that inform me, tell me about ihsan. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied by saying, أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if as though you are seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاهُ, and if it's not possible for you, or if you cannot assume that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you are seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then assume that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you, is watching you, and perform your salah in that way. So that is the second quality of the God-fearing people. It's not that just read their namazis quickly, 5 minutes here and there, come for the last rakat of salah and so on, not like that, but they perform the salah properly, with devotion, with khudu, with concentration. That is the second quality of the God-fearing people. The third quality of the God-fearing people is وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, that the bounty or the blessing or the wealth which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed them, yunfiqun, they spend. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them money, has given them wealth, and the wealth and the money which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to them, they are willing to spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, that if there is a good cause, like there is a masjid which is being built in their locality, or a masjid or a mosque is in need of renovation, then these people, these God-fearing people, are always there, are always putting their hands in their pockets to donate to the mosque. Or for example, an institution, a madrasa is in need of money, then these God-fearing people are always there, are always willing to put their hands in their pockets and give it to the madrasa and give it to the mosque. So the third quality of the God-fearing people is وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, that the ni'mah and the blessing, because obviously wealth is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the blessings which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to them, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon them, they are willing to spend yunfiqun. After that, the fourth verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. That these people are those who believe in the scriptures or in what has been revealed to you. بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, and they believe in what has been revealed before you. Now the fourth verse of Surah Al-Baqarah begins with the words وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. And there is a difference of opinion amongst the ulamas, amongst the scholars, with regards to this particular verse. Some scholars have said that this verse وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ and so on is a continuation of the previous verse. Meaning that in the previous verse we looked at some qualities, some characteristics of the God-fearing people. That they believe in the unseen. Number 2, they establish salah. Number 3, they are always willing to spend in the path of Allah. So some scholars have said that verse number 4 is a continuation of that, i.e. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ is a fourth quality of the God-fearing people, and that is that what has been revealed, the scriptures or the Quran which has been revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they believe in that. And then وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, that is like the fifth quality of the God-fearing people, and that is that what has been revealed before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Bible, the Torah, the scriptures which were given to the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, the scriptures which were given to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, the God-fearing people these God-fearing people believe in the scriptures and the books and the divinely books which were given before or which were revealed before. And as you know, that is like one of the fundamental or one of the essentials of a mu'min, of a believer, that is that along with believing the Quran, you also need to believe in the previous prophets, that before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, they also existed in this earth. They were also prophets as well, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave them books, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave them scriptures. So you have to believe in that. So some scholars have said that this verse number 4 is a continuation of praise for the God-fearing people. However, a famous companion in the name of Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he has said that this verse وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ has been revealed regarding those Jews and those Christians who were Jews and Christians before, but when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the advent of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they believed in the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu has said that during Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, there were two types of disbelievers. The first were the mushriks, like who used to worship idols, who used to worship fires and so on. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the teaching from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then these disbelievers, they let go of their previous shortcomings and they believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu is saying that verse number 3, i.e. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, is with regards to those believers, i.e. who were disbelievers before, who were mushriks before, who used to worship idols before. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the teachings of the Holy Quran, then they believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they became so pious that they believed in the unseen. وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, they established salah. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and the ni'mah and the blessings, the bounties which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to them, they are willing to spend in the path of Allah. Whereas Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Mas'ud anhu is saying that this verse number 4, which is in front of us, that is with regards to those who were Jews and those who were Christians before. That there were many Sahabas who were Jews and who were Christians before, but in their books is mention of the coming of a final prophet. It's mentioned in the Torah, it's mentioned in the Bible that there will be a prophet who will come at the end of time, and his name will be Ahmed. mentioning the Holy Quran as well. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and they saw the features which was promised or which was mentioned in the Torah and the Bible regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam straight away. So this verse number 4 here is talking about those Jews and those Christians. And when we look at the wording, it does make sense, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising those people and saying, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ, that those who believe in what has been revealed to you, i.e. to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, and they also believe in what has been revealed before you, i.e. on their respective scriptures, like the Torah, like the Bible, which was revealed to Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and to Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. They believe in that, and on top of that, they also believe in what has been revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then finally the verse finishes off by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying another quality which is of the God-fearing people, and that is وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ, that these God-fearing people, they believe or they have faith in the hereafter. And as all of you know, that this is one of the requirements of being a believer, is that you have to believe in the hereafter. You have to believe in life after death. You have to believe that this world is temporary. This world, what we're doing in this world, the good deeds we're doing, coming for namaz, giving zakat, giving optional charity, fasting and so on. These things will enable us, will help us in the hereafter. It will grant us Jannah, inshallah, and it will save us from the fire of hell. So وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ, and the paragraph finishes off by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, that it is they, or it is these God-fearing people who are on guidance. عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ, that they are on guidance given by the Lord. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, and it is they who are successful on the day of judgment, because they believed in the unseen, they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they used to establish salah, any whatever they had, they used to give it to charity. They believed in the previous scriptures, they believed in the Quran, they believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they believed in the hereafter. So because of all these reasons, on the day of judgment they will be successful, i.e. they will be granted Jannah, they will be granted paradise, and they will be saved and protected from the fire of hell. So that concludes the first paragraph, you could say, of Surah Al-Baqarah. Now, as I mentioned, that from the respective verses, any kind of issues which need to be discussed or which need to be clarified, we will look at that in some detail. Now, we begin verse number 3 again. And the first word or the first quality which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to describe the God-fearing people is الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, that the God-fearing people are those who believe in the unseen. Now, just take this opportunity to mention the difference between Iman and Islam, because these words will come up a lot in the Holy Quran, and also comes a lot when you open any book on Islam or anything, they will use these words Iman and Islam. However, there is a difference between them two. Now, Iman, as I mentioned, literally means to verify. At-tasdeeq means to verify, and technically it means to verify or to believe in the information given by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam or by any prophet on the basis of having full trust and full reliability upon that prophet. That is known as Iman. Like as I mentioned before, like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has come and told us that angels exist, or jinns exist, or like Jannat, paradise exists, Jahannam, the fire of hell exists. All these things. Now obviously we haven't seen angels with our own eyes. We haven't seen paradise and Jannah with our own eyes. We haven't seen the fire of hell with our own eyes. There are many other things which we haven't seen with our own eyes, but we believe in that. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us. So believe with your heart is known as Iman. And Islam, on the other hand, means to obey. Islam means obedience. It means to obey. And what do you mean by obey? It means to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by acting upon the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Iman literally means, or Iman technically means, to believe with your heart on the commandments of Islam, on angels, things which are invisible to us. And Islam means to obey on those commands by acting upon those commands. So when we see, in reality, Iman and Islam, they are combined with each other. That you need both for a person to be considered as a true believer. That there's no good in you believing in your heart that, alright, Islam is a true religion, without you manifesting your belief through action. And there's no point of you just doing good deeds, of you fasting, of you giving charity, for you to read namaz if you don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart. That's why you got munafiqs, which we're going to look at later on. The munafiqs, the hypocrites, that's what they would do. That they would manifest their actions, that they would do all these actions that come for namaz, they will fast, they will give zakat, they will give everything. But because they didn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their heart, so therefore whatever actions they did was invalid. So from this we can understand that Iman and Islam, they complement each other. That Iman means to believe in your heart of the information given by the Prophet, and Islam needs to verify those actions by manifesting those beliefs in action. So you need Iman, needs Islam, and similarly Islam needs Iman. Because if you, for example, just have Iman but you're not doing any action, then slowly that belief will go away, because you need to manifest that Iman in doing action. And obviously by just doing action without having any belief, then that is also invalid as well. So from this we can understand that there is a difference between Iman and Islam. However, when it comes to actions and so on, then it complements each other. Iman complements Islam, and Islam complements Iman. And just one final point on one, you could say, masla, you could say, and that is that in the Hanafi fiqh, or in the Hanafi school of thought, when it comes to Iman, it is essential and it is a requirement that the person manifests his Iman with his tongue. There's no good in that person just saying in his heart that, oh, I believe in Islam. If he doesn't say that on his tongue, if he doesn't say verbally that I believe in Islam, that I believe in Allah, I believe in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then that person's Iman would not be considered valid. Because in the Hanafi fiqh, it is shart, it is a condition, it is a requirement that after, if you have belief, you need to manifest that belief on your tongue. Okay? Because there are many non-Muslims, they will say in their heart that Islam is a true religion. But we won't consider them to be Muslims. We won't consider them to be true believers. Why? Because they haven't manifested that belief on their tongue. So when they manifest that belief on their tongue, it doesn't have to be in front of a large gathering. Even if they're at home by themselves, if they just say, oh, I believe in Islam and I believe in Allah, I believe in the finality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on their tongue, then their Iman will be valid. So it is essential and it is a requirement that they believe in that Iman, that if you have belief and faith in your heart, that you need to manifest this belief on your tongue by saying the kalima and by believing in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the finality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the next quality which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned is وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. That these God-fearing people, they establish salah, they establish namaz. Now, namaz is a very, very long topic. You could do like separate courses, you could have like separate gatherings, where you could talk about all the rulings of namaz and so on. So obviously, I'm not going to go over every single ruling in namaz in the dars or in the lesson. And on top of that, there are many books which have been written regarding namaz, so there's no point in me just going over some things which you may have understood or which you may know from before. Many books such as Talimul Haq and so on, in quite detail, in Behshti Dawat, in quite detail they describe how to read namaz, they describe when is it makruh and dislike to read namaz, when it is haram and lawful to read namaz, and so on and so forth. But what I'll do, or I'll take this opportunity to look at some rulings or some injunctions of salah which is not mentioned in many books. Like rulings which actually, you could say, contemporary issues which are linked with Muslims in this country, which you won't find in many books like Talimul Haq and in Beheshti Zewar and so on. Now, the first masla which I'm going to look at is a very important masla, and that is with regards to Fajr and Isha time in Britain. Now, obviously, everybody knows when Fajr starts, everybody knows when Isha starts, everybody knows when Zuhr starts, when Asr starts, and so on. But in the summer months, for 2.5 months approximately, it is difficult to determine when Fajr starts and when Isha starts. And this is a question which a lot of people ask that during the summer. A lot of people ask me that, when shall we read our Isha? Can we read our Isha straight away after Maghrib and so on? Then I said these are some issues which you won't find in any books, so therefore I'll just take this opportunity to kind of clarify this particular masla. Now, just very briefly, as everybody knows, that Fajr starts at Subh Sadiq. Subh Sadiq is basically, in the horizon you will see this whiteness, and this whiteness is known as Subh Sadiq. And with regards to Isha, again there's differences of opinion. Imam Yusuf Rahmatullah alayh, Imam Muhammad Rahmatullah alayh says that Isha time starts or begins after Shafaq-e-Ahmar. Now, what's Shafaq-e-Ahmar? In the winter you'll probably realize more better, you'll probably see more better, and that is that after Maghrib namaz, or when it's Maghrib time, if you look in the horizon, or if you look at the sky, you will see a tinge of redness, or a tinge of orangish. And then, when that orangish disappears, or when that redness disappears, then according to Imam Yusuf and Imam Muhammad Rahmatullah alayh, that's when your Isha time starts. Whereas Imam Abu Hanifah Rahmatullah alayh says that after the redness or the orangish color, when that disappears, you will see a white illumination in the sky. And when that white illumination in the sky disappears and it gets pitch black, that's when your Isha time starts, which in the Hanafi fiqh is known as Shafaq-e-Abyad. So basically, after Maghrib namaz, when the redness goes, when the red glow goes, disappears, and then the white illumination comes, and when the white illumination disappears, and when it gets pitch black, that's when Isha time starts according to the teachings of Imam Abu Hanifah Rahmatullah alayh. Now, just for your benefit, this masla I've actually written it on the website on darulifta.birmingham.co.uk, so it's more detailed. I've looked at it more astronomically, looking at through the different twilights and so on, that how this masla comes about. But just I won't actually mention it here. I'll just very briefly mention the ruling and the particular injunction. So obviously we looked at when Fajr starts and when Isha starts. Now, England or Britain is a country which is above 50 degrees latitude. Basically, it's up north. And countries which are up north during the summer months, you probably realize that after the Maghrib namaz, you'll see this kind of redness, this kind of reddish color. And then there will be a white illumination. Now, during the summer months, that white illumination doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away. That you'll see that white illumination all the way until Fajr time. And the next thing you know is that it's Fajr, and the next thing you know it's like sunrise. Now the question or the dilemma is that according to the Hanafi fiqh, when would you read your Isha? Because according to Imam Hanif Rahmatullah, he says when the white illumination disappears, that's when you read your Isha. But during the summer months in England, that white illumination doesn't disappear. If you, like, for example, or not like in June, say, when it's really, really hot, if you look outside your window really late at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, if you look outside, you'll see there's this kind of white illumination. It's not pitch black. So the question or the dilemma is that when would you read your Isha namaz? When it's not pitch black, when the illumination is still there, when would you read your Isha namaz? So that is the dilemma. And as I mentioned that, and the reason why is that because Britain is a country which is above 50 degrees latitude, and it is a country where it's difficult to determine when Isha time starts. And another thing which you can write down is that this masla only occurs for 2.5 months, which is between May the 16th and 29th July. Between those 2.5 months, May the 16th and 29th July, it is difficult to determine when Isha time starts and when Fajr time starts. Now, with regard to Isha time, the scholars, the contemporary scholars who reside in Britain, they got together and they decided that with regard to Isha time, there will be two views, or there are two opinions when can we do Isha time. The first view or the first opinion is that you will read your Isha acting upon the opinion of Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh. Meaning that after Maghrib namaz, when the redness and the orangish color, when that disappears, which is around approximately 1 hour after Maghrib namaz. So just say Maghrib namaz latest is 9:40, so at 10:40 you will read your Isha namaz. That is the first opinion. And the second opinion is that the time from sunset to sunrise, you will split it up into 7 parts, known as Sub'ul Layl. You will split it up into 7 parts. And after the 1/7, or after the first 7th part, then that's when the Isha time will start. So I'll just give you a very simple example. Just say sunset is at 10 p.m. at night, and 5 a.m. in the morning is sunrise. So that is a 7-hour period. So according to the second opinion, what would you do is that you will read your namaz after 1/7 of the night passes. So basically, after 1 hour, from 11 o'clock, you will read your Isha namaz. So these are the two opinions, i.e. you will read it 1 hour after Maghrib namaz, or number 2, you split the night up into 7 parts, and then after the first 7th part, then you will begin your Isha namaz. Now, just one final masla is, a lot of people ask me, is that in this area, some people, they combine their namaz during Maghrib. That at Maghrib time, they will read the Maghrib namaz and then straight away they will read the Isha namaz. During those 2.5 months, they will read the Isha namaz straight away. So they ask me, a lot of people ask me that, is that permissible or is that correct or not? Now, obviously this is a question which you won't find in books or anything like that, because I said these are issues which are, contemporary scholars really need to look at. So I put this question forward to one of my teachers, Hazrat Shaykhul Hadith, Sufi Sahib Sahib, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him blessings and barakah in his ilm and in his knowledge. I put forward this question, and he said to me that technically, or in principle, those who combine their salah, like at Maghrib time, they will read Maghrib, and then after that they will read the Isha straight away. Those who do that, technically their namaz will be done. Because when you look at it, that, there isn't an Isha time, because obviously the white illumination doesn't disappear, so there isn't an Isha time. So at 10 o'clock, if they read the Maghrib and then straight away they read the Isha, then technically their namaz will be done. However, the fatwa or the ruling would not be given on that opinion. The fatwa is that you have to read Isha after a gap. Like you can't read, or you can't, like for example, during Maghrib time, or as soon as you read Maghrib, then read Isha straight away. That would not be allowed. There has to be a gap of a small gap, and then after that read Isha. And the reason why is because if we allow people to combine the salah during Maghrib and Isha, firstly in the Hanafi fiqh, combining the salah is not allowed. And secondly is that the honor and the respect, or which is known in Urdu as ihtiram, of the Isha time will go. That people would not have that kind of feeling of Isha time. They will just read the Maghrib straight away, read the Isha straight away, and they will go home. They will not have that feeling, that kind of honor, that this is Isha, I'm reading Isha, and so on. So therefore, the masla or the ruling is that after you read your Maghrib, there has to be a gap, and then after that you have to read your Isha namaz. Now some people, they got problems, meaning that they have to work early. So again, they ask me that whether it's permissible for me to read namaz early and so on. So again, the masla is that no, it won't be, because even though you may have an early start, a lot of people, they work in the morning, they wake up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. But again, I'll say many of you won't sleep before 11 o'clock. Even during the summer months, even though you may have an early start, naturally we will go to sleep around 11ish. So if many of us are going to sleep at 11 o'clock, then Maghrib is at 9:40, the latest during the summer months. So what you do is that just wait an hour, and then at 10:40 start your Isha and then go to sleep straight away. Now, in such a situation, no one is, even though there's so much virtue for you to come to the mosque, but if the mosque timetable, like if it's too late, like 11 or 11, some mosques they do the Isha namaz during the summer months. So if that's too late for you, then what you do is at 10:40, as soon as Isha time starts, then read namaz at home and then go to sleep. Okay, we will not allow you will not give you any dispensation for you to combine the salah in Maghrib time, that you read Maghrib first and then after that you read Isha. That would not be allowed. Inshallah, next week we look at the masla with regards to Fajr namaz. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to act upon what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واغفر لنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. صلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.